Good day. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. We will be discussing the Fronius Solar.configurator 4.0 today. This is a simulation program from Fronius, which will basically assist an installer in planning how to set out PV module strings correctly. I'm just going to take the time to introduce our presenters for today. I am Hamid Sadat, the Technical Sales Advisor for Southern Africa. I am from Fronius South Africa, which is a subsidiary of Fronius International, and we are based in Johannesburg. Okay, I'm also going to take the time to introduce my colleague, Cyprian Okolo. He's the Technical Sales Advisor for Western Africa, and he is from our Fronius International. Okay, so before we begin and have a discussion about today's agenda, I'll just please like to launch a poll. So you will see a poll that will pop up on the screen. Okay, so the question of the poll, have you ever used the Solarconfigurator 4.0 before? You can just select an option. Yes, you have, and no, you have not. Okay, thanks for selecting the option. As you can see, the majority of today's attendees have no experience with Fronius Solar.configurator. So that's good to hear, because today's webinar will be very informative and will provide you a very good rundown on the exact capabilities of Fronius Solar.configurator, as well as how to use it most efficiently and effectively. So back to the presentation. For today's agenda, we will discuss what exactly is Fronius Solar.configurator. We will also have a look at the structure of Fronius Solar.configurator. We will also then discuss the advantages of using Solar.configurator in your system design. After which, we will then have a look at how to optimally use data from Solar.configurator. And we will then conclude whereby my colleague, Cyprian, will then show you a live system and how to basically go about navigating yourself through our web user interface. So what exactly is the Fronius Solar.configurator 4.0? So basically, it's a web application. So you just type in a specific address into your web browser, and it will then direct you to our Solarconfigurator 4.0 page. Once you land on the home page, you will then be presented by the screen over here. And as you can see, we have different portals on the screen. You can log in, so you can log into your Fronius account. And just remember, whenever you create a Fronius account, that same account will be generic for all Fronius applications that you do use. So let's say if you already have a SolarWeb account, you can just go log in and enter your SolarWeb details. You don't have to log in, so you can still use the software without logging in at all. What is the Fronius Solar.configurator? So basically, in a nutshell, it's an online tool that allows for fast and easy dimensioning of PV systems. It's 100% free of charge, so we do not charge you to use the Solarconfigurator platform. Again, it's free to use for any installer that would like to use it. It provides a form of individual consulting So with the Fronius Solar Configurator, it's extremely good in order to make sure that you check that you do the correct swing planning for your Fronius inverter. Just to note that you can only use this platform with a Fronius inverter. You can't use the Fronius Solar Configurator with another manufacturer's inverter. Okay, the Solar Configurator is continuously updated by Fronius, and this will ensure that we always have the latest modules, so PV modules that are available, as well as the latest products from Fronius. And again, it's extremely easy to use. Once you use the software about 2 or 3 times, you will become extremely familiar with the capabilities and functions of the software. So what is the structure of the configuration interface? So as soon as we land on the configuration interface, we will be provided by 3 main portals, let's call it that, and one of them is the PV module. Okay, so it's very important to select the correct PV module manufacturer. And just to let you know, you will pretty much find about 99% of PV module manufacturers on our Solar Configurator portal. The reason for this is that our field, which is the PV module manufacturer search field, is linked to an external third-party database. And on this external third-party database, they basically ensure that they collect the data of almost each and every PV module manufacturer out there, as well as each model of PV module that they do produce. Okay, so this list is extremely comprehensive, and as I said, you can pretty much find about 99% of all PV modules on the markets on our search bar. Okay, once you select the correct module, the data from the data sheet of the module will then automatically be synced to the Solar Configurator. Okay. Okay, when you are selecting the PV module, again, the only other field that you will have to fill in is the amount of PV modules you're interested in using, okay? And also the module temperature. Module temperature is very important because for each region, it will differ. And since we are dealing with a webinar which is targeted towards the African market, a good module temperature to set would be from -5 degrees Celsius to 70 degrees Celsius. The reason for that, general rule, is that we always take the average ambient maximum temperature and multiply that by 2. Okay, so in Africa, I would say the average high is about 35 degrees Celsius. And if we do multiply that by 2, we get 70 degrees Celsius. And that will be the upper limits. Okay, the lower limit will be -5 degrees Celsius. Again, there's few places in Africa where it does drop below 0 degrees Celsius. And I think the lowest it can drop is about -2, -3, obviously depending on altitude, etc. But we see that -5 degrees Celsius is a good lower limit to set. Okay, in terms of the inverter, you can basically select which country this inverter will be installed in. You can also then select the series of the inverter. So is this a Fronius Eco or is this a Fronius Simo? So you can pretty much find each and every Fronius manufactured inverter under the series. Okay, you can then select the type of the inverter. And lastly, you can also select the inverter ratio. Basically what inverter ratio is, in a nutshell, inverter ratio is the percentage of the inverter that you are going to use. So let's say that we use a 10 kilowatt Fronius inverter, and I set the minimum inverter ratio to be 80%. That will mean that the minimum amount of PV modules that you do want attached to this 10 kilowatt inverter would be 8 kilowatts, because 80% of 10 kilowatts is 8 kilowatts. If I do set the upper limit to 150%, it will mean that we want to install 15 kilowatts worth of modules onto this 10 kilowatt inverter, which you can do. So just remember, for all our 2-tracker inverters from Fronius, you can oversize the DC to 150%. So I can pretty much attach 15 kilowatts worth of modules onto a 10 kilowatt Fronius inverter. Just remember, at the end of the day, we will still get 10 kilowatts output. We will just ensure that we get that 10 kilowatts of outputs for a much longer duration of time. Okay, you can also have a general tab, and under the general tab, this is where we can now name the project. We can also specify the storage. So under storage, you will basically find the compatible Fronius batteries. such as the BYD high voltage premium battery. Okay. You can then also select the annual power consumption. So this is the power consumption of the load over a year. And we can also select the load profile. So the load profile basically indicates whether the power will be used mostly during the day or whether the power will be used mostly at night. So that will obviously affect the size of the battery that you should install. Okay, so if we look at the Solarconfigurator homepage, we'll basically see a tab called PV module. And this is now where we can select the applicable PV module, such as in this case, I've selected Jinko Solar, which, as you know, is one of the biggest PV module manufacturers in the world. And I've selected their 300 watt module. But as I said, you can pretty much find any module that they have produced under the search bar over here. Okay, the next field, you can then select how many PV modules you would like per string. So in this case, I'm only going to use an inverter with 2 MPPTs, so I only have the first one and second one activated. Okay, so you can go over here and you can select how many you want to place on each MPPT tracker. Okay, the next field, this is where you'll then set your minimum and your maximum module temperature. And as I said, for Africa, instead of setting it to -10, it would be better to set it to -5 for the lower limit, and for the maximum limit, you can keep it at 70 degrees Celsius. Okay, the next tab, this is now where you will select the country of installation. You'll also have the series of the inverter. So in this case, I have selected the Simo Gen 24 Plus, which is our new hybrid inverter that we have. Okay, you can then select the type of Simo Gen 24. So in this case, I selected a 10 kilowatts Simo Gen 24. And the next field, you can basically choose to dimension the inverter. So in this case, I dimensioned it at a lower limit of 80% and a maximum limit of 120%. So 80% of 10 kilowatts would be 8 kilowatts, okay? So this will basically tell the program that you want all suggestions that will at least fill 8 kilowatts of your 10 kilowatt inverter, okay? The maximum limit is set to 120%, and if you do a calculation, 120% of 10 kilowatts would give us 12 kilowatts. So the range of suggestions that I'm looking for is from 8 kilowatts to 12 kilowatts in this example. So basically, when I click the search bar, it will give me all applicable scenarios whereby I have at least 8 kilowatts worth of PV modules and a maximum of 12 kilowatts worth of PV modules. Okay, the third step, if you are using a hybrid Fronius inverter, is to then select the storage. Okay, so you can just name a project. We can then go to the storage. If you click on the tab on the storage, you'll then have a drop-down list of all applicable Fronius batteries. So this, again, is a very good way to check whether a specific battery will be applicable to a specific Fronius inverter, is to go to this box and check the compatibility, let's call it that. Okay, in this case, I chose the BYD battery box, the high voltage variant. Okay, and I chose the 22.08 kilowatt hour storage. Okay, for the power consumption per year, I selected 4,000 kilowatt hours, and for the load profile, you either get employed or you get family. The difference, if it's employed, it means that the load is not really active during the day, whereas if it's family, it means that the load is very active during the day. And as I said earlier on, this will affect the capacity of battery storage that you will need, and that our program will suggest to you that you should use. So what are the main advantages of the Solarconfigurator platform? Okay, so it allows for the complete input of mandatory fields for dimensioning possibilities. So basically what that means is that you can get a lot of different possibilities that will be presented to you. So generally, if you don't use a Solarconfigurator program, you might only be able to draw up a few suggestions yourself. Okay, but if you do use this program, you can draw up to 30, 40, or even more possibilities. Okay, and using those possibilities, you can do a little calculation in order to determine which will be the most economically feasible and which will be the most sensible approach to go for. Okay, as I said, it provides you with a comprehensive list of all possibilities and system configuration options. So in this case over here, these are all the results that the program has suggested to me. As you can see, we've got on the screen at least, what is that, about 7, 14, about 28 suggestions at least, okay? And out of these 28 suggestions, we can go and just pick one, okay, to work with. Okay, if you look at the top of the screen over here, remember this is the same example I showed you earlier on with the 10 kilowatt inverter. It then gives me an IR, which stands for inverter ratio. That means the percentage of the inverter that we are utilizing. So if you are utilizing 120% of the inverter, it will give us around 12 kilowatt peak worth of PV modules. Okay, we also have the battery capacity that we're dealing with, and if you look further down the screen, we can basically see the different combinations that is available. So for example, on the first MPPT tracker, I have 1 times 19, which basically means that I'm going to have 19 modules on the first MPPT tracker. On the second tracker, it's showing me that I'm only going to have 1 string with 19 modules. Okay, just to go into further detail with the first tab that shows us the number of modules and inverter ratio. The second tab shows us the selected storage with self-sufficiency and own consumption levels. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. The third tab shows us the optimum storage, and the last tab basically shows us the amount of modules per string. Okay, so the next question would be, how do we go about finding the optimum configuration? So the first part of it would be getting the uniform scheme, and this is done by a very top-down approach. Okay, so we start with the number of amount of modules. We then go to the selected storage, optimum storage. We then select with or without storage, and we'll then be given a whole list of string configurations. Okay, the next platform would be the number of modules. So using this platform, we can then do a classic classification from left to right, and we can basically work out the optimum amount of modules per string. And as I said again, what would again be more economically feasible. Okay, we'll then be dealing with efficiency, and with the efficiency, we again work with a top-down approach, and we will be again having a look at each tracker individually, okay, to make sure that we make optimum use of both tracker 1 and tracker 2. And just please take note that when the program does give you your list of suggestions, the most efficient suggestion will be at the top, so on the top row. So now we're just going to be discussing the optimal use of data on Solarconfigurator platform. So basically, once I have selected the configuration I would like to go for, I will then be brought up with this pop-up window. On this pop-up window, we can see for the first MPPT tracker that it suggests that we should use 1 string and that we should use 20 modules per that string. Okay. As you can see, our open circuit voltage is less than 1000 volts DC, which is again what we want, okay? And as you can see, we do fulfill the short circuit current match. Don't need string fuse, okay? And we do not need a string combiner box as well. Okay, the reason why we don't need a string combiner box is that because we do not exceed the maximum amount of strings per MPPT tracker. Okay, if we go to the second MPPT tracker, we can see that we are suggested to have 1 string. And on that 1 string, we are suggested to have 12 modules. Okay, just remember again that with Fronius inverters, the short circuit current for the first tracker will differ to the short circuit current for the second tracker. Okay, so the short circuit current for the first and second trackers will not be the same. And this is why, as you can see, these suggestions are different. For the first one, we suggested 20 modules, and for the second one, we suggested 12 modules. So generally, the first tracker will always be able to take a higher short circuit current than the second tracker. Okay, if we go further down the screen, we'll be able to see the inverter ratio, and we'll be able to see the MPP power at 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, we can then generate a PDF from this form, and this PDF you can then download and share with your client. And this is pretty much how the PDF will look. Okay, so we basically see Fronius Solar.configurator as an extremely effective tool for installers to offer to a client as a sort of written report that, look, it's approved by Fronius, and these are the different combinations we can go with, and you can then sit down with your client and decide on the best possible approach. So again, it's an attachment to individual offers, confirmation of correct system design, ease of use, clarification of technical details, and this would be your different string configurations, different module types, and different inverters. So let's say if you are struggling with a specific part of the Solar configurator, you can always request help from Fronius Tech Support or from Fronius Technical Sales Advisors. Okay, so what inverters can you find on the platform? You can find the whole list of Fronius Snap inverters. Okay, that would be the primer range, which is our single phase inverter, starts from 3 kilowatts, goes up until 8.2. You'll also be able to find the SIMO range, which is our 3-phase inverter range starting from 3 kilowatts up until 20 kilowatts. You'll also find our 3-phase eco, and you will also find our SIMO hybrid, which is our Snap inverter hybrid inverter, 3-phase hybrid inverter. You will then find our new generation of inverters called the Gen 24 Plus, and these are our hybrid inverters. So we have the Primo Gen 24 Plus, and we have the SIMO Gen 24. The 50 kilowatt variant as well as the 100 kilowatt variant, and they're both 3-phase. Okay, that's all from my side. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Cyprian, who will be running through a live demonstration of the Fronius Solar configurator.
Yeah, hello Mo. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, and good day all to all the attendees, and it's a pleasure having you around. So right now we're going to go through a live demonstration of the Fronius Solar configurator. So to do this, all you need to do is see if I can get my pointer ready. Yeah, so you can just in case if you want to do this together with us, you can actually click on this link. That is, this will take you directly to the Fronius Solar configurator landing page, or you can go through solarweb.com. Whichever way, it will take you directly to our link, and then to the landing page, and then we can continue. So that's just in case if you want to do so. So I already have it running on the background, so we can as well go ahead. So so this is how the landing page looks like, and just like my colleague Hamid Sadat earlier explained, it's basically divided into 3 sections. One for configuration of the PV module, and then another section is for the inverter, and then general settings. So for the PV module, we're going to go through each of the options, all we have here, and then at the end of the day, have a detailed outlay of the Fronius Solar configurator, and then we can then appreciate how easy it is to actually use this. Great. So I would like to stick to the examples Mo used earlier. So for PV module, we're going to use Jinko Solar. So, but that doesn't mean that that's the only way. It's just that it's a bit more popular per se. But then you're free to use any module of your choice. And like he said earlier, this platform is actually updated all the time with the latest module from their respective manufacturers. So you can be sure that whatever module you want to use, it is very, very possible that you're going to have them on our database. So for this case, let's type in Jinko. So once you have the name already in our database, it will just autofill, and then all you need to do is just to click on it. And then after that, you would now have to select the particular module you want to use. And then, so if you click on the drop-down menu here, it now gives you the option of the different modules available. So, so we're going to look for Jinko. Let's use the 300 watts solar module. So all you need to do is just to scroll, and then let's pick this one. So there you have it. Now, just in case, in a situation where you don't have the data of the module that you would want to use on this platform, it is of course possible to actually add one. So once you click on this plus button here, you can actually, you have the opportunity to actually fill in the module particulars of the PV module you want to use. So all you need to do, be sure you have all the necessary details, the correct details of the module you want to use, and then you can add the details here when you click on the plus button here. And then to get a good view of the module you're using, just in case you don't have it, you can click on I here, the I button here. So once you do that, it's going to give you all the necessary information you need, the open circuit voltage, the short circuit current, all STC conditions, that is for the MPP voltage at standard test conditions, that of voltage, current, and power also, and then temperature coefficients, and just all the information you need, including the dimension of this module. So it basically gives you all the information you need about the module, and in fact also the cell technology, if it is poly or monocrystalline. So by the time you have all this information, you'll be sure that you're using the right module with its respective specifications. So by the time you're done with that, you would have a pop-up, a default pop-up number of PV modules, but that's, you're still in the configuration mode, so this wouldn't necessarily count for now until after you're done with your configuration. So that's for number of PV modules. So next thing we should check on is the module temperature. And like Mo earlier talked about, you can actually adjust this depending on your region. So basically for Africa, it's you can actually have a range of -5 to 70 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so this can now be set as the minima and maxima level of your module temperature. And then with that, I think we're done with the PV module section. So when we now come to the inverter section, all you can do is to select your country. So if it's Austria, you select Austria. If it's South Africa, you select. If it's France, wherever you are, you can just select a country here. So since this is the default country, I'll just leave it at this. And then for the series, this is where you select the series, the inverter series you want to use. So I'm just going to go with the SIMO here. So, but if you click on it, you're going to see all the inverter series that we have. So it actually has all the inverter series available. So the Echo, the Primo, the new generation Primo Gen 24 and SIMO Gen 24, and then of course the Tauro, which will be launched in no longer time. So like I said, I will be sticking with the SIMO here, and then after selecting the series, you will now have to select the particular inverter you're going to use. So for this case, let's use the SIMO 20, which is the highest capacity in the SIMO range. So select the SIMO 20. So if you're using any other inverter module, you can as well select them from here. So I'm just going to stick with the SIMO 20 here. And then once you're done with that, would now come to the inverter ratio, just like Mo earlier described. So it can actually be lower than this or higher than this. And like we've presented to you or told you from our previous webinars and data sheets obtainable, you can actually oversize our inverters to up to 150%. So this figure can actually go to 150%. Yeah, so for this, I'm just going to stick with this, and then with that, we're done with this. So this is just like an example, so you can have this configured to your specific project design. Yeah, so we're done with the inverter section. So we now go to the general section. So for the general section here, you're going to select the project name. This is where you tend to make the design configuration yours. So if you have maybe a name of a client that you're designing the system for, you can as well put the name of the client here. It's editable. And if you want to put your company name per se, you can actually have it done here. So once that's done, you can now proceed to the storage section. So since we're using the SIMO is strictly a grid tie inverter or a string inverter, so you wouldn't have an option of storage. So as you can see, they're all gray marked, so you can actually use a storage solution here. And so the good thing about this demonstration is we're going to try a demonstration for a design without storage, and then we're going to do one with storage possibilities. Yeah, that's when we're going to involve our Gen 24 plus. Great. So let's go ahead with this. Now, for the annual power consumption, this is actually an assumption. It's assumed that for a family of 4, the approximate annual power consumption is 4,000 kilowatt hour. Now, like I said, this is an assumption. So for you to get an exact value here, you would have to do, let's say, a load profile to be able to get this. But then you can actually go online and also get this information too. But basically, it varies across regions, and with the availability of power and population per family, the main factors of this figure here. So you can have as high as 12,000 kilowatt hour in places like Canada and America and the USA. And then you can get as low as 100 kilowatt hour in places like China. And this is basically, yeah, you could say that they have the population, but then the population per family is usually 3. So in this case, you don't have much power consumption per family. So it's usually low. So these are some of the most salient factors that affect the figure or the annual power consumption. So basically, as a design engineer, you'd have to do a load profile or just do a general assessment, and then you can now get the suitable figure to use as your annual consumption figure. So For load profile, it's either employed or family. So employed basically means that this household goes to work. So during the daytime, they don't use much of the energy. So they're not daytime consumers. So what this basically means is that they would have to invest more on storage, because when they come back, they will need the power. And then if you have a storage facility, it means that you can store power for you, so that when you come back from work, you can now use it at your convenience. Then if you go with family, and if you notice, as I'm clicking on this option, you would have some changes being effected on the array configuration. So this is because this all rely on the information that you enter on your configuration panels. So like I said, for family, if you click on family, it means that this particular household consumes power during the daytime. So basically meaning that they are daytime consumers. So by the time you're done with that, I think that will be all. So all you need to do now is to select a particular configuration for your design. Now, according to the inverter ratio, we have it range spanning from 80 to 120%. So from what we have here on the screen, we have 81% to 95%. So if you're designing for, let's say, 120%, that's the maximum. You would now have to click to the right. And as you're clicking, you can see the IR, the inverter ratio increasing. So this is 98%. So you continue clicking until you get to the number of IR, or the IR specification that you want to use. So let's say we go for let's go for 110%, or we can actually stretch it to the maximum. Or okay, let's leave it at 110%. So like I said, feel free. It's you're free to use whatever configuration that suits you. So if we're going to use an IR, an inverter ratio of 110%, what this basically means is that, as you can see from this symbol here, it shows you the number of modules that you can use to achieve this. Okay, so so for this case, we're going to be using 75 modules, and then if we're using 75 modules with this PV module, that is the Jinko JKM 300-72, we will be generating 22.5 kilowatts peak. So that's it. So that gives you 110% inverter ratio. So that's what this box basically means. So self-sufficiency level will be 35%, and then own consumption level will be 6%. So going on to the more interesting part of the configuration, it gives you the option of module layout. So for this case, what this normally does is that it brings you the more, would I say, easily adaptable options. They usually come on the top. And then, of course, like I said, you're free to use whatever design option that it gives you or you feel comfortable with, just as long as you keep to the design parameters. So let's just say we go with this, for example. So, and if you want to streamline this configuration so that you don't get too confused, you can actually click on this, and then it will direct your attention to the particular section, and then you can now select which particular design configuration you want to use. So like I said earlier, if we want to go with this, so this simply means that we would have 3 strings on MPP1, and each string will have 20 panels, and then on MPP2, that is PV2, would have one string of 15 panels or modules, as the case may be. So yeah, so you can feel free to select this or anyone. So if we go by this, if you click it, it's now going to give you a drop down of the design configuration, where you're going to have the details of the number of strings. Here it says 3. The number of PV modules per string is going to be 20. You would have your MPP level, your voltage level, that is at the highest module temperature. It's going to be 621.25. And then at a lower level, it's which is 5 degrees, that's open circuit voltage, is going to be 998.17 volts. So that's for MPPT1. So, and then for MPPT2, you're going to have the other detail. Here you're going to have one string, as earlier indicated, and then number of PV module on this string will be 15. So, and then going further, you would have the general information. The inverter ratio is 110, and the power generated from this configuration will be 22.5 kilowatt peak. Now, if you want to have a detailed report, you can actually click on Create Report, and then it will automatically generate a PDF. This will be automatically downloaded. Then you can as well open this, and then of course, you can now have a detailed PDF report, which is of course well detailed and of course printable. So you can present this to a prospective client as your report. So as you can see, it has on it all the necessary details of your configuration. So yeah, so there you have it. Yeah, so just one point. Okay, I'm just going to go up. Okay, you can also have your legend here to explain whatever all the symbol means. So you have them here. So I was just going to go to this particular symbol. So this symbol simply means that string fuses are required in this case. So just for you to note. So wherever you see this symbol, it basically indicate that you require string fuses for this particular configuration. So that's for without battery option. So I'm quickly going to go through one that you would require, or you would need a battery option if you want to explore that. So you can basically select a SIMO, either a Primo or SIMO Gen 24 Plus. So I'm going to go with a SIMO. So in this case, of course, you would see a battery symbol popping up, so telling you that, of course, you have battery connection option. So basically, SIMO and Primo Gen 24 Plus are hybrid inverters. So they are battery compatible, they are battery connectable. So when you come here, initially, when we did this with the SIMO 20, we didn't have any option for storage. So with the SIMO Gen 24 Plus, we now have options for storage. So here you're basically going to click on the battery option that you would like to use. So just going to go with the lowest here. The lowest is going to be a HVS 5.1, which comes with a 5.12 kilowatt hour specification. Other options are HVS 7.7, which comes with a 7.68 kilowatts option. So I'm just going to go with this, and then by clicking that, we'll have some configurations popping up already. And yeah, mind you, if we select the SIMO Gen 24, we'll have to select a particular type of inverter. So I'm going to go with the highest, which is a SIMO Gen 24 10. That's a 10 kilowatts hybrid inverter. So with this, let's now go to the option. Yeah, so it's because it's the SIMO Gen 24 6 was on. That was why we had the option of using 5.12. So with this, we can as well go for an equivalent power grid. So let's go with 10.24 kilowatts, which is corresponding to a BYD battery box HVS 10.2. So if we click on that, we would now have the respective options or configurations there for us to use. So with this, as we can see already, in this case, we don't need string fuses. String fuses are not required in this case. So, and with this, you can now select your respective IR, that is inverter ratio. So for this case, let me see if I can stretch it to 120. So we'll have 120% inverter ratio. So this simply means that for this particular design, with every other condition, every other specifications as they were, we're going to be needing we're going to be needing 40 modules of the same JKM 300-72 module, and then we'll be generating 12 kilowatts peak. So by so doing, and for our power option, as selected earlier, we're going to be having a 10.2 kilowatt hour with self-sufficiency level of 75% and non-consumption level of 25%. And then, yeah, it still tells us that this particular storage options are optimal, but you can as well go for something higher. So like we did, so like I said, it's all left to you. You have the luxury of time and freedom to actually select whatever configuration that suits you. So for this case, I'm going to go with something much more even. So I'm going to go with this. So this leaves me with 20 modules on MPP1 and then 20 modules on MPP2. And then like we did earlier, if you click on it, it's going to give you all the necessary information you need. So for MPP1, we'll have just one string with 20 modules, and then you have all the respective information, just like we have for MPPT2. And then, of course, you can as well generate the report, open it, and then see a detailed report of what you just designed. So that's basically how to go through this. And at this point, I must say that we're not just stopping at this. At the moment, right now, as I speak, we're making modifications on was going to add different, much more features on this design software, so that it's going to be much more, to contain much more information that would help the design engineer in his dimensioning and configuration of a system. So yeah, so that's just something to look forward to. And it's going to, once it comes out, we're going to make sure that we inform each and every one of you that we're going to be having an improvement on this particular software. But even as this, it's quite a great one to use, and this does make your work easy. So like I said earlier, you can actually log in. That is, it's free, but if you want to have an account, you can as well open an account and then have your login account. And then of course this is free, and then if you don't want to, you can as well do so freely. Yeah, so I think we've gone through all the possibilities for the legend. You can as well see everything, and then take all the necessary information that you need from it. So, but you can as well keep your questions coming on the chat, and then we'll be more than happy to attend to them. So I think with this, I think we've gone through the solar configurator and all its properties and functions. And yeah, so that's it. So Mo, do we have any questions emanating from this demonstration? Okay, yeah, so I'm going to, this is the presentation for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said earlier, if you have any question, you can just go ahead and send them. And then I want to believe that we can have a brief session of verbal questions and answers that will be conducted by me and Mo. So yeah, I think we can do that now. So I'm just going to go through your questions and then see if we can attend to them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cyprian, for your good live demonstration of the system.
Yeah, so I'm just going to leave this screen on so that maybe it could serve as a template for us to answer some of the questions. So for one of the questions, okay, so I have a question that says, why does PV1 have more modules than PV2? That is, why does MPP1 have more modules on it than MPP2? I think that was from the example you picked on or we discussed on during your presentation.
Yes, I think that comes down to the short circuit current maximum capability for that specific MPPT tracker. So generally with all Fronius inverters, if it's a 2 MPPT tracker inverter, the MPPT tracker 1 will always have a greater short circuit current capacity than the MPPT 2. And this is why whenever you use a solar configurator, you'll always see that in the majority of cases, MPPT 1 will have a higher number of suggested modules than MPPT2. Just remember, with Fronius solar inverters, we're actually very good in the fact that we can unbalance our trackers. So you do not have to have the same amount of modules on each tracker. You can have 80% of your modules on the first tracker and 20% of your modules on the second tracker. And this makes our inverters extremely versatile because you can pretty much throw a Fronius inverter on a roof which has maybe an extremely weird shaped roof that maybe 20% is facing one direction and 80% is facing another direction. And the inverter will work perfectly fine without any degradation due to unbalanced MPPT trackers. And yeah, just to get back to the presentation, I'd just like to share the link on the screen. So the link on the screen, that's the Solar Configurator link. So if you click on that link, you can go straight to the Solar Configurator software. Or you can also access the Solar Configurator via SolarWeb. So if you go to SolarWeb, and if you scroll to the bottom of the screen, you will then find the Solar Configurator button, which you can then click.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. If you do want further information, you can just always visit our homepage. Again, you can always have a look at further trainings and register for further trainings as well under our info center on our Fronius website. And again, we also have a YouTube channel whereby you can find all the webinars and you can then watch these webinars at your own time. Okay, so yeah, if you have any technical questions, we have a dedicated support line for those technical questions. And again, we also have a dedicated email line for these technical questions. Any further trainings, you can contact one of those numbers on the top, or again, you can even email pvtraining@fronius.com. Again, if you are interested in purchasing any Fronius products, you can contact the numbers on your screen, or you can even send an email to pv-sales@fronius.com. Same can be said for after sales. So if you do need some after sales services, you can contact one of those following numbers. Again, you can contact any three technical sales advisor if you are located in Africa. So if you, for example, you're located in Eastern Africa, you can contact my colleague David Mwangi, who is located in Kenya. Or for Western Africa, you can contact Cyprian. Or for Southern Africa, you can contact myself. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, I would thank you all for attending today's presentation. Myself and Cyprian will be staying for the next 5 minutes, so we will be staying online. But that is the content so far for today. And yeah, please make sure to register for the other webinars that we will be, again, having next week Thursday at the same time. And again, yeah, just please have a look at the Fronius training page where you will be able to see all other webinar topics that might interest you.